Welcome, everyone. We're so glad that you're here to close the evening together with us. You may be a parent, guider, or teen helping create a memorable experience for the children in your lives. Or you may be a grown-up who loves nature and a good campfire story. Before we get started, let's take a moment to breathe in the quiet night air. We've all been doing our best to cope with the strange times we're living in, and who knows how many times we've heard the word unprecedented over the past 2 months. Breathe all that out. We're here to take a bit of time to reflect on our favorite memories of nature and the value of resilience. For many of us, our daytime hours are spent on work. Evenings offer more time for sharing food and stories with family and friends. The same was true for our ancestors. Human beings have been sitting around campfires for hundreds of thousands of years. A campfire has always been a place where songs are sung, stories are shared, and relationships are strengthened. Anthropologists tell us that these campfire conversations helped shape human culture and perhaps helped us understand one another a little better and cooperate with one another a little more. Tonight, we're joined by Dr. David Suzuki and his daughter Severn Cullis-Suzuki. Their camping stories might resonate with your own experiences as children, adults, or parents. We'd love to hear your stories of memorable childhood moments in nature. Share them with us, or with the person sitting beside you. Before we begin our storytelling, let's get our campfire started with a song. This one is from the Netherlands and is called Dutch Fire Opening. Sing along if you know it. As adults, we may not realize the positive and powerful impact we're having on the lives of those around us. The same is true in some of the early memories of David Suzuki. He has a story to share about a childhood experience in nature with his father that he has never forgotten.
I was about 8 years old. One day, Dad said, "Let's go fishing. Let's go fishing for Mom and the girls." So off we set. We found a rowboat that had been left on the shore, and Dad rowed in the rowboat along Slocan Lake, and we went about 2 miles and finally got to the shore, and there was a creek called Evans Creek. We took our packs out and we hiked up a trail along Evans Creek to Evans Lake, which was a small lake. We passed Evans Lake and hiked up some more. This is several kilometers of hiking. We hiked up to Cahill Lake, and as we were leaving Evans Lake, it was getting dark. So I was 8, but I trusted my father. He was great at everything. But then it became dark and we only had one flashlight. And we were struggling because there were all kinds of big trees that had fallen across the path, and we'd either have to squeeze in under the trees or climb up over them, and it was quite damp. And the big thing I was afraid of was Devil's Club. Devil's Club are these bushes that have big thorns on them, and if you got stuck by them, it was quite painful. So we were struggling along this trail. It was quite dark, and I started to get really tired, and I started to cry, 8 years old. My poor father, this boy, he's going, "Oh, Daddy, I'm so tired and I'm wet." And I went, "How long is it? Are we going to get there?" He said, "David, you're a boy now. You're a big boy. Here, I'll carry your pack." And on we went, and on we went, and it seemed as if we were going for hours and hours. And finally we got to Cahill Lake, and I said, "Oh, that's so great. Can we camp here?" "No, we have to go around the edge of Cahill Lake to the other end." And that was another long hike, probably 1.5 kilometers. And we finally got to this old miner's camp. It was a log cabin that anybody could use. And so I was so happy, and Dad opened the door and we peered in with a flashlight, and there was a porcupine. The porcupines apparently come in. They like to lick any place that humans have touched, oars or paddles or axe handles, anything with human sweat on it, because they're always trying to get the salt. And they like to chew at the oars and paddles. But there was this porcupine, and Dad pulled off his shirt or sweater and began to hit the porcupine. And I'm going, Daddy, Daddy, don't hurt the porcupine. Don't, Daddy, please don't. And the porcupine was jumping up the wall, trying to get out. And finally, the porcupine saw the open door and it ran out. And my dad said, David, I wasn't trying to hurt it. I was just trying to get these. And he showed me his sweater, and it was filled with porcupine quills. The quills, as you know, are these sharp points that they use to defend themselves, and they come off rather easily. They don't. A lot of people think porcupines shoot their quills. They don't shoot their quills. They only come off very easily, and if they stick in you, it's a pretty painful thing. But Dad collected these quills because they're hollow, and you could put your line. You could drill a hole in them, put a line through them, and they were perfect floats. So if you had a bait on your hook and you wanted to throw out the line into the lake, you could put the quill on, and when the quill sank, you knew you had a bite. So that was my experience with the porcupine, and I'm glad the porcupine wasn't hurt. But it was an amazing end to a long day of hiking. I'm David Suzuki, and that's one of my stories from childhood.
Spending time in nature makes us happier, healthier, and less stressed. Nature has a lot to teach us too: joy, curiosity, empathy, and even the value of perseverance. Anyone who's gone hiking or camping in cold, rainy weather learns the importance of being prepared and the satisfaction of telling friends your story of triumph afterwards. Severn Cullis-Suzuki has her own camping story, an experience that came with a few challenges, but was worth it in the end.
Hi everyone, my name is Severn Cullis-Suzuki. I'm an environmentalist and social justice and language activist, and I'm speaking to you here from where I live on the islands of Haida Gwaii, which is home of the Haida Nation. The story that I want to share with you today is from when my son Gunflons was turning 7. So it's already 3 years ago now. We asked him, Gunflons, what do you want to do for your birthday? And he said, I want to find a glass ball. Well, glass balls are originally from Japan. They come from Japanese fishing boats. Japanese fishing boats used to use hand-blown glass balls as their fishing floats. And I'm not sure if they do this still today, but you can still sometimes find these old, beautiful glass orbs washed up on the shore here on Haida Gwaii. So my son wanted to find a glass ball. Now, we still are finding glass balls here on Haida Gwaii, but they're rare. They're hard to find. I've never found one. So we thought, oh man, that's what he wants for his birthday? Gee, well, we'll have to go on a camping trip on the West Coast, which is, more wild, but more chance of finding one of these glass balls blown all the way from Japan. And maybe we can bring a glass ball that my husband had already found. Maybe we'll sneak it in our backpack so we can hide it for him so he can find it. Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay. Anyway, we set off on our trip. Now we had to drive to the launch spot to get to the West Coast, which is at the best of times an adventure. But on this occasion, well, we nearly lost the trailer that was transporting our boat. It started smoking. We had to pull over. We had to drive back into town. We had to find someone who would help us. We had all kinds of obstacles. And finally, when we finally got out to the launch spot on the West Coast in Rennell Sound, it was late in the day. It was already about 4 p.m. And we knew that a storm was brewing. So we thought that we could make it. We wanted to go around the corner from Rennell Sound and tuck into this beautiful little inlet where we thought there would be a good chance of getting glass balls, and we were going to camp there for a good 4 days. So we set off in our little 19-foot boat with a little cuddy cabin. We set out in these, started out really nice and sheltered in Rennell Sound, and by the time we were nearing the point, it was these huge rollers. And our 2 kids, we have Gunflons, who was turning 7, and Tisan, who was 4 years old. They were just being completely thrown all over the boat. Their little heads were snapping back every time we were crashing down on a wave. It was terrible, and little Gunny was crying. So we couldn't make it all the way toward our proposed destination. We had to turn inwards, and we went into this little inlet where Judson, my husband, knew there was one place to anchor. So we went all the way up this inlet, and we found this one tiny island where there was a little tiny bay that would shelter us from the weather. And that's where we tucked in our little boat. We anchored the boat, and we were able to get ashore and pitch a tent. And we just hunkered down there. It was pouring rain. It was storming. And on the second day, we realized, you know what, I think we're stuck here. We might as well explore. And so we circumnavigated this island. We found not a stick of dry wood. There was hardly any driftwood at all. And so we weren't able to make a fire. It was still pouring rain. And we found there was actually really nothing on this island. There was no beach. There was no sand. It was just rocky shore. But there was a glass ball. And Gunflons found it. He rounded a corner. We were just exploring, looking for dry wood, looking for anything. And lo and behold, there was this beautiful little glass ball just waiting for him. So he did it. He somehow manifested this crazy adventure. We'd completely forgotten about the glass ball. We'd forgotten to bring one in the backpack. But, the trip was totally not what we'd intended. But this little 7-year-old had somehow manifested a glass ball on his birthday. And that's what that island had, the only thing it had. And so we were sopping wet. We hunkered down there for 4 days. We couldn't get out, and the only thing we had was a radio. We were listening to the weather, and finally we realized there was a break in the weather before another system was coming in, and we made a dash for it, and we made it out of that inlet, made it back to Rennell Sound over huge rollers. And yeah, that was the end of our adventure. And whenever Gunflons is doubting himself or wondering, if something is possible or not, that's what I remind him of. This magical adventure that could have been the worst trip ever, but actually was the best trip ever. And he made it happen. He manifested his vision. He manifested a glass ball out of that. And I think it shows the power of our minds.
Moments in the natural world with significant adults in our lives can be powerful. At Girl Guides of Canada, we see this all the time in the stories girls and volunteers share. From the outdoor adventures they have embarked on over the past year, to the ways that they are staying connected amidst physical distancing, they keep the guiding spirit alive. Thank you to our amazing guiders and volunteers, and to everyone here tonight. We welcome you all as honorary sisters or siblings in guiding. Well, folks, we've come to the end of the grown-up portion of the camp-in. We hope you continue to reflect on your own stories of camping or time in nature. Thank you so much for joining us and for all that you do. Good night, and keep on guiding.